Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the medium frequency. I'm so excited to have you all here today with us. And Chris should be joining us in just a little bit. But for now, I am very excited to introduce my dear friend, Navi. Let's go ahead and bring Navi on up. Hi, hun.
Hello, Raven. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful, though I have a chaos gremlin kitten that is having the zoomies in the background. So if anything falls down or there's any noises, I apologize in advance.
No worries at all. We love our kitties. They are special. So you have written an amazing book on angels, and I would love to hear some of your insights on what angels are and what some of your experiences have been and what inspired you to write your book.
Okay. Um, Very broad subject, so prepare to humor me with info dumping and geeking out. Um, So, my earliest encounter with angelic beings was growing up in a loving family that was what I call Sicilian Catholic, where we attended church every week. We believed that in the sacraments and in the church life, but we also believe that Mary was more important than God because she's the mom. And we practiced in my family, as well as other families we were close to, magical and psychic skills, if you will, that nonetheless we would be paranoid if they were to be accused as being anything smacking of magic or the occult. They were simply the old custom. But my introduction was to the concept of your guardian angel in that matrix, as well as the broader nine choirs of the angelic host, where you have angels, archangels, principalities, virtues, and so on, closer and closer to the throne of the Almighty. That said, I also, when I began delving more deeply, I don't see anything that I do now as being an invalidation of how I was raised. No, I'm not a practicing um, card carrying Roman Catholic, but Italian folk magic, whether it is initiatory witchcraft or whether it is a survival of pre Christian religion or whether it is just a secular practice, is still culturally indebted to that Catholic substrate or veneer. So as I started delving deeper and deeper, I Do well, let me clarify. I found that there is a difference between how angels are approached in a Christian or even Muslim framework and how angels were seen as such by other cultures. And there are commonalities, there is a universal sense of divine messengers and intermediaries. But a lot of my personal magical practice goes from Hellenistic, Neo-Pythagorean theurgy and Greek magical papyri. And in that culture, prior to or separate from the interactions with Semitic and Persian ideas. For instance, the Zoroastrians have the Yazatas, who are usually seen as being angels, but historically they would have been gods and goddesses serving Ahura Mazda, battling Ahriman and the Devas. Um, but the Hellenistic concept, all all spirits are daemones. The root word that became our modern English concept of demon. And all daemon means is a divine intelligence or a divine force that is replete with wisdom, if you will, or the accurate word would be noetic, intelligence, which includes both logic as well as intuition, but also the deeper inner knowing of gnosis. Um, and a daemon became an angel, an angelos, or plural would be angeloi, when and only when they were relaying a message from person to person, from spirit to spirit, from gods to mortal kind, or by extension, if they were conveying and communicating some sort of influence in magical work or through symbolism and visionary experience. Once that message, that communication is over and done with, the angeloi then became rank and file daemones. The farther back you go, the daemones as spirits, it could be used to refer to intermediary spirits, elementals, the dead, specifically the forgotten dead, who wander with Hecate and are given solace and purpose through partnership with earthly sorcerers. But it also could apply to historical figures such as heroes or philosophers who were held to have united with what we would see as their higher self. It also, daemon or daemonic, could also refer to the gods themselves. With Neoplatonic philosophy and the rarifications of Pythagoreanism, that really became Neoplatonic, Hermetic, and also, while respecting the Jewishness of the Kabbalah, ultimately informed the development of Kabbalistic theology and practices in ancient Alexandria. So that's the core. So for me, I find every interaction with spirit as being try authentic communication and negotiation while also respecting my agency, but these beings, whether you're talking about angels, demons, jinn, the elves, because never call them fairies unless you want to get eaten, goblins, etc., 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 they have their own agency. And there is a lot of nuance there, but nothing exists solely for our personal benefit. And that is the difference between traditional experiences with angelic beings and other worldly entities, as let alone magical interaction therewith, and the new age saccharine, sugar sweet manifesting bullshit. I say that and I need to follow that up. The so-called art of manifestation or the science of manifestation, all that is magic. All that is occult science. All that is spell casting. But unfortunately, a lot of people from the new age spirituality or spirituality or theosophical spiritualist background have a knee-jerk reaction to anything referencing occultism, sorcery, or the like. But that's the subject of a different TED Talk. Now, with the evolution of Christianity, as well as alternative Christianity, such as the Gnostics or the Marcionites or the Montanists, um, you found or you find this development of angels being the servants of God and demons being meh. And in that framework, angels and the prerequisite for being an angel is the only purpose, the only modus operandi of an angel, of the Malachim, and all their various permutations, is they exist solely to fulfill the will of God. Now, you can get away with some shady shit and it still be within the will of God. Because if you go by biblical texts, God never sent demons or devils to punish people. He always sent an angel. It was a group of angels that decimated Sodom and Gomorrah. It was angels that cast out Adam and Eva from Eden and their descendants. One wing is always dipped in blood, to quote a dear friend of mine, Raven Morgaine, who is a priest in Voodoo, Santeria, and Candomblé, as well as being a phenomenal artist and diviner. So you see that demons in original Canaanite, Semitic, Arabic, and Hebrew tribal religion are just like you and me. They are prone to chaos, but they are beings of free will. So you can negotiate with them. You can talk with them and at least understand them and be understood by them. And you can do whatever the fuck you want with them, provided you give them something of equivalent value in payment. Whereas angels, it always behooves you to either do an intuitive check or some form of divination through tarot cards, pendulum, etc., or asking for a sign. Mindful, and this is a little pet peeve, that your instincts and gut reactions and subconscious prejudices and personal biases are not the same as your intuition. And there is not a law of discernment and separation of the two in a lot of popular occultism and spirituality nowadays, which is why you have, on one hand, so many people who are batshit crazy who believe in the Pleiadian dolphins that are having sex with you and manipulating your kundalini, and the reptilian aliens under the hollow earth, which come up through the White House. Don't go by your prejudices and biases. Always have a healthy skepticism, but also cultivate that spirit of discernment when you're engaging. But back to that point, it always behooves you to just fact check yourself when working with angels in this stream, because again, you can get away with some shady shit with angels, whether it's killing an enemy, and seducing a cute little blonde twunk college rugby player to be your love slave, healing the sick, making bank financially, etc., etc. But it needs to be within that greater pattern of divine providence or will. During the Italian Renaissance, all these streams came together and ultimately became the very streams of Solomonic, Hermetic, and other Renaissance era styles of magical practice, whether folkloric or whether more ceremonial. And you see different outcroppings and how they fit together, where some people, like on a folkloric peasant level in Italy, Portugal, etc., you still have that angel being messenger and all spirits kind of being demonic or worthy of respect, but it has like an overlay from the Catholic and Protestant churches, depending. And that overlay is important, but ultimately it makes angels and also demons more magic friendly, if you will, where you can also, I'm going to borrow a metaphor used by um, Jason Miller, where angels can also be seen much akin to the Rada Loa in Haitian voodoo or the benevolent teachers and bodhisattvas in Buddhism who are calm, cool, level headed, a little slower to act, but more prone to order, whereas demons are more wrathful guardians or agents of chaos and mavericks and mercenaries and more volatile and passionate. And we need both. But most of us, I know I do, need more to snuggle with that cool, calm energy of peace, order, and harmony, and cooperation and sweetness, as opposed to being all death unto my enemies, burn it all to the ground, intrusive thought, throw gerbils at a nun type of chaos and passion all the time. But all things, I'm going to close this all up with my favorite quote from ancient Greece. And this is one of the precepts that was carved on Apollo's Temple of Delphi, and that is all things in moderation, including moderation.
Hmm.
But I've talked a lot, so did I answer your question, or is there anything you would like me to put more emphasis on or explore more?
So, what made you first choose to go ahead and dive more into angels yourself? What was one of your first experiences with them, and what inspired you to write your book?
Awesome questions, and thank you. Um, for me, a lot of my personal experiences do not gel with Orthodox Christianity. And so I found myself asking, why? What's really going on here? I also had begun studying and practicing within Italian continental and Sicilian, specifically Sicilian-American diasporic traditional witchcraft, and working with archangels and angels is an important part of that particular family of systems and traditions, specifically as it's been passed through the ages because we hid under Mary's skirts. Before I continue, I would like to seg a little off and honor my own elders and teachers because I would not be the magical practitioner, the author, the priestess, the person I am today were it not for their influence, their guidance, their support. And in Sicilian craft, I especially would like to honor Mary and Dennis, Lori Bruno, and also my brother Vinny Russo and my craft sister Beth Master Marino, as well as my own downlines of initiates and students there. I also would like on Alexandrian Wicca, which I'm sure we'll get into. I also would like to thank and honor Oracle Hecateos and Moonbear, my initiating elders, and my common family through that stream of magic. Segueing back into answering your question. So, prior to encountering and pursuing Stregeria, Stregoneria, Magaria, I really was rebelling against my Catholic roots and ignoring a lot of the folk practices and ideas I was raised with because I saw it as being either worthless or bad. Crossing that threshold and really delving into it, I realized that many of the angels and archangels we would know in Catholicism as well as Judaism, Islam, Baha'i, and the Mandians and the other Semitic descendants of Moshe and Abraham. Most of them are Chaldean. Most of them are themselves gods or the ministers of the gods. Some have theorized that the Hellenic word angelos I had mentioned came from a Babylonian word meaning apkalu, who were the guardians of temples and the emissaries of the Igigi and Anunnaki, the celestial and the terrestrial gods. Um, some have theorized that Michael the Archangel, for instance, is really a reflex or a derivation or an aspect of the Sumerian Mukalu who served Marduk in Babylon and Marduk's Sumerian predecessor Elil um, as a dispenser of justice. And one of the 50 names of Marduk that cast down the great dragon Tiamat and the Enuma Elish. So, deepening that, and then I also began studying and working in a solitary way with the Golden Dawn system of magic, Orem Solas's Ogdoadic magic, through the published books by Denning and Phillips, um, as well as deep diving into Enochian, Solomonic grimoires, and just all kinds of magic, and teasing out where all these tangled threads intersect, interweave, and then separate. Also, as I pursued initiation into British traditional Wicca, first in the Algar tradition, downline from Mary Nesnick, with a wonderful priestess who unfortunately has recently passed away, Cindy Wilson, Olympias of Hecate's Torch, who was kind of a time capsule because she stopped practicing the Algar tradition after she left her mother Coven, and then ultimately formed and founded the Thessalian Strixcraft temples out of New Mexico and Texas. But through that, and then through my current Alexandrian initiators, I came to have an appreciation for the angelic art of Madeleine Montalban, who founded the Order of the Morning Star. I did study for a time with Order of the Morning Star, which is still active, and you can still access their course. So please do not buy any of David Goddard's books because he is a plagiarist and a predator in our community. However, all of that really, like, it's not so much appreciating all things separately, but understanding and being led, I guess, to have these experiences and devise my own personal system based on and founded in what I have received. Because tradition is not that worshiping of dead ashes or fossils. It's the preservation of that fire, that flame, that living, dancing spirit. And it's the very spirit of being a traditional occultist, whether you are a traditional Wiccan, traditional Strega, traditional Golden Dawn, or traditional Solomonic purist, or traditional whatever, or traditional Kimbanda, or traditional, again, whatever. It is the hallmark that you use that rubric, the parameters, protocols, teachings, safeguards, and ideas, and energy, and mystery passed to you licitly, whether by bonds of initiation or by simply doing the work yourself, depending on path, because some paths are closed systems or are required to study under a teacher, and others you wail for a demon lover and beg the gods, and then the gods answer and fuck up your life. And if you survive, congratulations, you now know how to do the things. Both are equally traditional, just depending what cultural matrix and path. But ultimately, once you get to that point and cross that threshold, it is innovation, creativity, evolution. We are custodians of what we are past. We are not its possessors, and it is our duty to feed it and let it grow and evolve into the future. And so I've taken a lot of learning the original systems of whatever path is relevant and then speaking my truth and applying it to be an authentic path for me that's relevant for me. And I, for instance, when I teach, when I pass these respective disciplines, systems, traditions down, I am obligated both by oath, but also by kind of like that sense of this is right, to pass it as it was passed to me, but also have an open dialogue, calling a spade a spade. For instance, Dion Fortune, her book, Psychic Self Defense, I require that in tandem to other texts when you are first starting out, because
Mhm.
calling a spirit, conjuring a spirit, attracting a spirit, that's the easy work. Getting rid of them, that's the hard work. And you also need to know how to assert boundaries and defend yourself, because there are fuckwads and twat waffles and dumpster fires all
Mhm.
around us. Psychic Self-Defense by Dion Fortune is important and required, in my opinion, because every book on psychic self-defense and magical protection that has followed is based upon that textbook. Whether it is based in the sense of, okay, well, how do we make this more modern? Like Protection and Reversal Magic by Jason Miller, Draja McCurrick's Spiritual Cleansing, The Witch's Shield by Christopher Pensack, or, as is more often, especially amongst New Age authors, Doreen Virtue and the crowd of other imbeciles, um, outright plagiarizing of that book or watering it down. So I recommend it as a source text in addition to supporting texts such as Jason Miller's or others. But I also have a candid, open conversation because Dion Fortune was racist and anti-Semitic, like most
Mhm.
people in the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn and other magical orders inherited and developed the Hermetic Kabbalah out of the Dominican Inquisitors torturing Jews during the Inquisition, prying little nuggets of Kabbalistic wisdom from those who are dying on the rack and pyre because they wanted to use that magic for Jesus, and then they added the five-letter name, which is Jesus or Yeshua, to it so that they could have their cake and eat it too, but also convert the Jews or kill them. And so we have that, the anti-Semiticism, we have the racist shit she says about Asian people and Oriental paths, as well as in her novels, The Sea Priestess and Moon Magic, using the N word
Mhm.
Granted, at the time in Victorian and Elizabethan England, that word meant something very different than what was being used in the Americas, but still, it still meant someone that was stupid in the English vernacular. And she also had strange views about sexuality, gender, which is where a lot of systems have adopted gender essentialist or genitalia essentialist rhetoric and confused it with polarity. So I like having an open conversation, whether I'm working in a store and people are asking for book recommendations, or if it's with someone who is studying with me, or if it's just at a meetup. I love having this deep dive of, okay, well, these are the issues, these are the problematic bullshits, which I'm picking on Dion Fortune, but can apply to any and every author, myself included. And it's okay. We are a product of our times, but the times are changing, and it's our responsibility to change with the times. So, coming back to your question, or the core, I wrote the book because I had really resonated with Madeline Montalban's system of angelic magic, as well as my own studies and deep dives into the grimoire tradition and Italian Renaissance Hermeticism, as well as what I had received as an initiate of both Sicilian witchcraft and Alexandrian witchcraft, and also just talking with other practitioners who, whether they were working with Greek magic papyri or Rigardi's Golden Dawn or OTO or whatever, we would like all geek out and info dump, and all that converged. And there's this saying that the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Mhm.
And I wrote A Star from Heaven because I had devised my own methods based on those foundations and roots that I thought were pretty brilliant, but I'm biased. And I also wanted to share that and also address a lot of the misunderstandings, as well as a lot of the fluffy frou-frou bullshit,
Mhm.
which, don't get me wrong, and this is where, even though I've spent however many minutes apparently bashing the New Age movement, I do recognize that you should only go to the threshold of your comfort level in anything magical, mystical, or psychic. Because there comes a point where you realize that there are forces greater than even the gods that could eat you, or that could drive you insane, because we're not meant to peer too long into that abyss, which is neither a good nor a bad abyss. I'm not making a value judgment there, like some
Mhm.
end of days ministers would have us believe. And for instance, a dear friend yelled at me because they were reading a previous draft of A Star from Heaven, and they were enjoying but overwhelmed by the amount of footnotes I had put. And many of those footnotes are very relevant and standard sources, etc. But I also would have unhinged commentary. For instance, there is a fantasy that your holy guardian angel is your higher self. No, I am willing to concede that you might encounter either your higher self as an angelic figure or that your guardian angel might overshadow and inform your higher self as a means of communication. But delving into the lore and the history, the two are separate. So I had the most fun writing that of my 6 books. Previous books were either collections of my poetry, which I love because poetry is awesome, or very A, B, C, let's connect the dots and explain this and focus on business. Whereas the Angel Magic primer was I'm going to say what needs to be said and lay out the steps that I found helpful and relevant to working with the angelic hierarchies and spirits in general. But I'm also a different person than when I was in 2000 or when I was a teeny bopper witch lit in the 1990s. I've lived life and I've seen a lot of bitter and sweet, a lot of good and bad, a lot of pain and pleasure. And I am hopefully a little bit more mature. So even though I can cuss like a sailor in multiple languages, and even though I am still a work in progress and still developing and still maturing, I had found my voice as a writer. And when you do that, or when you find your voice as a psychic reader or as a teacher, or a member of the priesthood or an artist or whatever, you can then relax and show the world something of your authenticity, something of your sincerity, something of your vulnerability, and make your work more beautiful and more poignant, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Now there is a question by Christy Rico. Actually, there are two questions. One of the questions is why is the Enoch such a touchy subject for most people? And go
Oh,
ahead.
so there are two separate but related, I guess, subjects. One, we have Enochian in magic, which was a system revealed or developed by John Dee and Edward Kelly in the first Elizabethan age, where they received or were inspired or began encountering a specific hierarchy of angels with its own alphabet language and tablets and system. But the name Endokian applying to that comes from the older system or the older Book of Enoch, which is apocryphal. It is not generally accepted in a standard Protestant or Roman Catholic Bible, though it is included in several versions of the Ethiopian and Coptic Bibles, where the sons of God, a particular category of angels, the Grigori, the Watchers, descended upon Mount Hebron or Mount Hermon, depending on version, and taught the arts of civilization, magic, etc., and in the process, banged the brains out of any person that would spread their legs to them. And the resulting children of those trysts were two types. One were the Nephilim, who could be translated as people of renown or the people of wisdom, but it can also mean men and women who know the name. Or if you like sci-fi and go by Zechariah Sitchin, people of the flaming rockets, but that is etymologically incorrect, and Zechariah Sitchin has no academic background. Claimed to have it, but when people dug into it, they found that he was a scam artist and fraud and had no college level degree in ancient languages, history, or biblical history or Babylonian history specific. Anyways, the other children of the Nephilim of the Grigori were giants that ate people. I see that as being a metaphor for initiatory work and the process of spiritual and mystical initiation, where if you are doing the work and are a proper person and are prepared properly, you become one of the wise. But if you pursue it with ulterior motives or improper preparation, you go insane and become a self-destructive time bomb. Or if you want to be biblical, you become an abomination. There is no specific magical system per se with the Watchers or the Grigori. I've devised my own system of working with them, and I have found them to be very relevant as teachers of magical arts. However, I do recommend Liber Nephilim by Frater Barabbas and um, reading the actual Book of Enoch as well to gain a sense of their complexity. Frater Barabbas has done a lot of ceremonial work with the Grigori that is pretty deep. And the mythology that's come through and the rubrics of working with them and learning from them that he's developed are pretty top notch. It's not my aesthetic, but
Mhm.
reading it, it's pretty awesome. That said, the Enochiana that developed with Dee and Kelly is gained a reputation because when you use the angelic language, when you call the beings, whether they're the Harptarchial kings and princes or the governors of the Aethirs or the legions of the watchtowers or variation thereof, things happen. And those things that happen usually happen in big ways. My theory is that the angelic magic working with Michael, Barachiel, and all those that we have through Semitic, Chaldean history and lore, that magic is any magical system or practice that is petitioning those to intercede on your behalf or fulfill your will aligned with the will of the creator, however you see that creative principle. And those angelic beings are easily anthropomorphized, or at least anthrocentric and human relevant. Not the full scope of their duties or purpose, mind you, but you can talk with them. You can understand a little bit of what they're coming from or where they're coming from. The Enochian angels and the hierarchies in the Enochian tongue and system, beyond the ones that we've just said, because they do figure as kind of like the threshold guardians, they are, when artists who are also occultists have conjured the Enochian angels, they usually portray in drawing or art images that are very similar, eerily similar to either gray reptilian aliens or the elder things of H.P. Lovecraft in imagery, where they're eldritch and kind of pre-human and pre-cosmos. I like to say that angel magic from the Renaissance or Golden Dawn or whatever is magic working with the angels, whereas Enochian magic is the magic that the angels themselves use to create, preserve, destroy, and regenerate the cosmos.
Okay.
So I also will say that I like describing the Enochian angels as sentient algebraic formulas that taunt you while you try to solve for y. And if you solve for y, you get what you wish for. But if you don't, then they may or may not eat you or just laugh at you. The angels, such as Michael, etc., they might not be buddy buddy with us, but they tolerate humanity. They seem to think we're cute monkeys. Whereas my experience of the Enochian system and the Enochian hierarchies, they really don't like people. They don't like being bothered because they have bigger things to do. They're more macrocosmic. And if you approach them sincerely and either through Golden Dawn or a deep purist or a combination between the two system, in other words, addressing them properly, they will fulfill your will or they'll answer your questions and they'll help you. But it's more of, oh, okay, let me pat the idiot on the head, flick them off while I go through the door after giving them the candy bar they wanted. I'm not sure if I made that clear. And there is a lot of debate about it because I have not found any danger in working with either the Grigori or the Enochian hierarchies of Dee and Kelly, but I have also really known my place. And yes, I'm awesome, epic, and fabulous, and I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I have a sense of humility and a sense of piety, I guess is a word. And I don't mean that in the sense of being a devout, fundamentalist, Pentecostal witch. I mean that more in a sense of My approach is all about building relationships, communication, and honoring the giver of the gifts, whether I'm the giver of the gift or a spirit is. And so I think that I'm just cute enough that I haven't gotten into any danger there. So my opinion is that it's not dangerous until it is, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Now, what are your thoughts? And I'm pretty sure I know what your thoughts are, perhaps on this, but what are your thoughts on humans having and angelic systems of like energetic DNA and those kinds of things involved?
Ooh, ooh. So with the Book of Enoch and the Grigori and the Nephilim could be an analogous. I am butchering that pronunciation of that word and I apologize, but it could correlate with witches or magical workers. And that is where the first of us came from. We also see related or similar legends of descent amongst the British Isles, where witches or the first witches were said to have been born when the good folk, the shining ones, took human lovers. Or in some Muslim countries, on the folkloric level, it, the witches or witch equivalent wise ones get their power through either erotic union or genetic descent from a union with one of the jinn. And also we have the witches of the ancient world, Medea, Kirke, etc. They're all descendants of Apollo, Helios, Hecate, or Hyperion in some way. And I find those myths of origin very important, very powerful. However, if we reduce it to terms of race, DNA, or heredity, we are talking about racism and eugenics, and I don't have time for that bullshit.
That's exactly what I thought you would say. Yes.
Energetically, okay, so whatever genetic or hereditary based component is now universal. Why? Because humans like to fuck. Humans like to fuck and get pregnant
Mhm.
throughout our history, with respect to those who have chosen to be child free. But so we all have that angelic fire. We all have that touch of fairy. We all have that golden inheritance just by being human. Beyond race, beyond family, beyond regional cultural matrix. It's our humanity.
Hmm.
Energetically, however, that is the fire that is passed down in rites of passage into traditional houses of folkloric witchcraft, in the 3 degrees of traditional Wicca, in the traditional fairy doctors of Ireland, amongst uh, houses of Kimbanda, Lukumi, etc., and in lodges and orders of turn of the century ceremonial magic. The royal blood, the witch blood, the lineage of light is traced and passed by initiation, by breath, by ritual, by living your path. And it is only through that practice, whether that is a established practice, such as an order, tradition, coven, or apprentice teacher setting, or whether it is the more dangerous and solitary path of going out into the wilderness and wailing, pleading, and purging yourself and petitioning to be taught, or whether there is a traumatic experience that puts you into survival mode and awakens the fire in the blood. A really good book about this topic, which he quotes me a lot because he's amazing and I'm very honored to have been included. But Nathan King's book, Awakening the Witch Blood,
Amazing
is
book.
amazing book
Mhm.
and a really good exploration about this broader topic and what it actually means and why it's important and those parts of it that we assume are not important or that are not really important, like race and eugenics, because who has time for that bullshit?
Right.
Do we have a question?
Oh, yes. The question is, have you ever heard of Clarion? And if so, who is she or was she?
The only Clarion I know of is a villain in either DC or Marvel comics where they're the witch boy
Mhm.
um with the cat familiar. However, it can very well be the name of a spirit or an angel that a group of people have worked with in history and reference for, or for that a particular individual, whether it's the person asking that question or someone around them has had an encounter with or developed a relationship with. For funny story, Santander Bank, I die in hysterics because Santander was the name of a devil that the Lancashire witches in England would send out to do their bidding.
Oh,
So, but he doesn't exist in any of the official hierarchies in the grimoires, but specific to Lancashire area of England. So, in answer to your question, I don't have personal knowledge of this figure, Clarion, per se, but it is perfectly possible that there is an actual being using that name that bodes or requires further research.
now there was another question that was presented about Michael and Lilith, and I'm trying to find it. Let's see here. The question was from Christy. Christy asked, "Does Michael fear Lilith?"
So I'm going to offend a lot of people right now. And I'm going to ask that you hear me out. This idea that Lilith is anything other than a demon or is a goddess, even, is fairly modern, thanks in part to Jewish feminism, which is awesome. There are concepts of the Lilitu in Sumer, who was the handmaiden of Inanna's temple, as well as being an owl figure who guarded the tree, and that might very well have been the Proto-Semitic roots of the Lilith figure. In the alphabet poem, where she comes into being by refusing to lie under Adam, that has been admitted by biblical scholars to be a forgery, where that legend really didn't exist until medieval Spain. Prior to that, the amulets, the practices associated in Hebrew tribal culture that ultimately evolved into Judaism were associated with a demoness that either suffocated children or referred to sexual assault. That said, that said, if you go back again to Sumer, we find Lilith's myth repeated, but it is the goddess Lamashtu, who is the daughter of Anu, the god of the heavens. Lamashtu was never worshipped. She was never idealized or here seen as like a tragic heroine, like Lilith has become, but she was a vengeful spirit of hurricanes and tidal waves that was responsible for seducing men and then eating them, but also suffocating children because she had lost her children. And so she was jealous. And so she had no temples and was not worshipped. Her husband, Pazuzu, made famous by the movie The Exorcist, also a demon, but also a god, was his image was erected specifically to ward her off or keep her in line so that she was not destructive. That said, you can work with the figure or the spirit of Lilith, and I know many of her devotees who are authentic, powerful, and their lives are in order. And that is wonderful. However, I do caution that either you pair her with Pazuzu through the Lamashtu connection, or you incorporate Sanoi, San Sanoi, Samangalaf, the three angels that she agreed not to murder children or cause harm if their names were mentioned or present, or alternatively, go by the Arabic evolution as Lilia, the night lily, or Lilana, the night dancer, where amongst the Mandians, she is the queen of darkness, and she takes the king of light as her husband, and their child is the Mandian redeemer, the primal man, And he, in the Mandean scriptures, says she was the best of mothers. Or in the more Arabic derivations, she is queen of the jinn. And she's dangerous, but she does not bear ill will as much as in Jewish folklore and the later propaganda by the Catholic Church. That said, I do not think that any spirit is necessarily afraid of any other spirit. I personally don't have fear of any spirit myself, and I don't encourage people to be afraid of any spirit. So I'm not dismissing the question, and I'm not trying to come across as making fun of it because I'm not, because it's an important question. Sitting with it though, and kind of like thinking about it and going over the lore, if we see Michael as an angel, as like a cool spirit of order and like peace, like a peaceful, cool quality, and Lilith as a demonic figure prone to chaos, I don't see them as necessarily being a good correlation. I see it being like oil and vinegar with them
Mhm.
as a pairing. She has been paired with Samael, who in the Christian era became an alternative name for Satan. However, in Jewish, Arabic, and Renaissance angel lore, Samael is the angel of Mars. And so I could see that as being a feasible pairing of Samael, yes, a wrathful martial angel, but still an angel that complements Lilith. Um, I don't see there being any fear there, again, with any spirit or amongst any spirits. I think more that there are some spirits that are, again, like oil and vinegar, or that are opposite, or no, or just repel each other just because of their nature. Um, or their own backstory, because we all have backstories. And that's all I personally would say on that. However, I personally, admittedly, do not work with Lilith based on personal initiatory oaths and other traditions and systems. So I don't have that personal experience. I do work with Nama, who is one of the four queens, or the four mothers of the witch's blood, or the four queens of the Sabbat. The other, Lilith being another of the four.
Mhm.
However, Nama has no ties to being a vengeful or a wrathful spirit. She is more of a seductress and a songstress, a musician and a magician and a muse. Now, granted, she likes seducing uptight, puritanical men specifically and leading them to ruin by exposing them for being secretly down low gay men or hypocritical sluts themselves. But beyond that, in the Tanakh, the story of King Solomon and the two women with a child, Nama is identified with the woman that refused to cut the child in half and wanted to protect it when Solomon suggested, oh, neither one of you know who the mother is, or both of you are claiming to be the mother. And one woman said, oh, yeah, let's cut it in half so we can both have a piece. And the other woman said, no, then the baby will die. Nama is identified with that woman, whereas Lilith was identified with the one that kind of eagerly wanted half of the baby. Um, and again, I am not demonizing Lilith, except academically, she is a demon. Um, but I don't have personal devotee or magical relationship with her that others would. So I can only answer based on my experience and my own research. So I hope that
What
was helpful.
what are when you've worked with angels and seen angels, how do they appear to you? Like what do they look like to you? Because I know that a lot of people have different viewpoints as to how they appear to them, and so I'm curious about your interactions with what you've seen for yourself.
So with for so I tend to work with the nine choir arrangement, which is pretty much Catholic Neoplatonic mysticism, where you have angels, archangels, and so on. And then the ninth choir is the seraphim. The seraphim are serpents of fire, and then others are the wheels within wheels with many eyes. However, when working with angels and archangels, I tend to see them as taller, radiant, humanoid beings. And then as I'm going farther and farther from the terrestrial sphere and more closer to the throne of God, for lack of a better term, I tend to experience them as either wheels within wheels with eyes, or blinding light, and you can just make out animal shapes, but they're multiple animals, like a wing, or the coils of a serpent, or a lion's tail flicking in the background, um, or just beings of pure fire and light. That's the only way I can describe them. When it comes to the Enochian angels, my experience has been more Lovecraftian, um, where many eyes, but also reptilian and crustacean aspects there. But also, there's also this interesting concept in the Sophian stream of Gnosticism, where the angels of Adonai, the angels of God the Father, the angels of the Lord, are the angels that manifest as light and fire, as spirit and mind. But the angels of our earthly mother, the angels of the Shekinah, the angels of the mother spirit, the angels of Sophia, they are the forces of nature. So encountering them is outside my window, there is a tree. That is an angel of the earthly mother. A gust of breeze, that is also an angel of the earthly mother. So it's an interesting concept uh, of framing experiences.
Okay. Yeah, I've had some interesting experiences myself where I've seen them with several eyes, with
Mhm.
multiple eyes, but then I've also seen humanoid versions as well. So I've always had curiosity about like the different levels of ones that are out there because I've seen two different versions so far. So it's interesting. Now, if people want to find your books or connect with you, what's the best way for them to be able to do that?
I am available on Facebook. I also have a professional page. I believe it's Ravi Sousa, witch writer and artist. Um, I do have a Patreon and a Substack, and I can share my link tree in the chat if that's okay.
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
Give me one sec as I figure out the horror.
No problem. Oh no, did we lose Navi? We might have. Navi will be back shortly, I'm
Yes, we
sure.
lost him for a second. I think he was trying to add his link. I
Hmm.
just wanted to add that unfortunately Chris didn't make it tonight or has not yet. He was having trouble with traffic and that kind of stuff, and he is apologizing. And I told him to just be safe. That was what was more important. You had this tonight. He covered
Yeah,
you. That's what a partner is for.
we're
Um,
a team, so it's totally fine.
Exactly. So everybody, thank you for watching. And Christy, as always, she loves to comment, and we love it. We
Yes.
just appreciate you so very much, as well as anybody else that is watching. And we've had like Sean, Christy. Let me go back. Blah blah blah. And I think there he is. Oh, I think
Oh no, did we
Uh,
lose him again?
there he is.
Oh,
Okay.
there he is.
Anyway,
There we go.
I'm
There you
gonna
are.
pop back out.
Sorry
No
about that.
worries. No worries.
Okay, I sent it to the chat.
Perfect. Hi, Patty. Perfect. That way, people can go ahead and connect with you more to ask more questions because I know that you have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we haven't even touched on the other initiations and crafts that um, you are initiated in, and um, we would just love to have you come back. That would be
Oh,
wonderful.
I would love that.
Yeah. Is there anything else before we close, and then I'm going to bring Gwen up, that you'd like to share about tonight?
I think a closing thought is the world is a dumpster fire right now, and it does not look good for peace and justice. But we should still keep that fire of hope alive. And during times of tyranny and oppression, the sorcerers, the magic makers, the visionaries, the artists, the poets, we thrive, and we are always targeted, but we thrive because we are the voice of the spirit, and we are the voice of the people. And it behooves us to remember that we keep the fire of hope. We keep the light alive in this world, and that we should anchor that light and fire by real world effort, whether that is magical work, political activism, or simply being a caretaker and caregiver for others or for ourselves. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Navi. Gwen, I'm going to go ahead and have you join us again, my dear.
I am here.
Do you have any questions for Navi before we close?
My mind is amazed at the moment. I agree with you. Chris, I was trying to hold your little your he said, excuse me, Christy said his mind is amazing. And it is. I am just overwhelmed with, I don't know if I have questions or I just need to go back and watch this again to soak it in again. I gotta read your book. I have to read your book. I do. I tell you what, we have so many amazing guests and you are one of them that I don't have time enough to read everybody's stuff. And yeah, I'm just going to have to put it on, and just listen to it is what I'm gonna have to do.
Navi's book is amazing. You'll love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna absolutely have to. And you guys, thank everybody for watching. Like I said, Christy loves to comment, but we do have viewers that just don't comment. They listen, they watch, and like I was saying, I'm not sure if you heard me or not. Chris was not able to get home in time, and I told him, "Do not race home. Be safe." We understand things happen. So he did not intentionally miss the episode, but it happens sometimes, unfortunately. So, but
Which
yes,
I know he's going to watch the episode and then have a million questions
yes,
for you.
yes, he
Trust
will.
me, he is, and he'll want to ask you a million questions the next time because, yeah.
Thank you so much again for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I've enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely.
All right, guys. Well, if you are ready to sign off, Raven, Navi, I'm gonna pull you down, and if you want to hang on a minute in the background, that'd be awesome. Okay. There you go. Well, as always, you guys have the best guests. Now, I'm not saying that, but you guys do have that. We always do. Everybody on the network has them. And I was trying to pull up my little book here. I believe next week, I can't say her last name, but I'm going to try. If I butcher it, her name is Billie Jean Casella.
Yeah.
Did I say it right? Okay.
Yeah.
She's going to be on next week. She's, I think the word is mentor for Chris or one of them. Am I saying that right?
One of Chris's mentors, and I'm super excited to get to know her and hear her perspectives as well. It's going to be great.
Well, I know I've just messaged with her like I try to do everybody that's coming on and say, hey, this is who I am, introduce myself, and kind of say, get their pictures for the ads and stuff like that. And honestly, she is awesome. She dressed as like, I want to say a Viking on one of her pictures. And that is just, I love it. I love it. I actually have started to do an outfit similar, which is very interesting to me. So
I can't wait to see.
I know. So you guys, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna let Raven say goodnight. I'm so used to just kind of taking over, so I always have to apologize and step back for a minute. But yes, thank everybody for watching, and why don't you just tell them goodnight?
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in the Medium Frequency tonight. Our next show will be Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And make sure to go ahead and connect with Navi. Navi has some amazing books out and is always willing to work with people. And that's one of the many things I love about Navi. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.